I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
It's in the night away. It's in the night away.
He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink, he drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink. He sings the songs that remind him of the good times. He sings the songs that remind him of the best times.
Oh, Danny boy, Danny boy, Danny boy.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
It's in the night away. It's in the night away.
He drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink, he drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink. He sings the songs that remind him of the good times. He sings the songs that remind him of the best times.
Don't cry for me, next door neighbor.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never g
I do not endorse anything said in this stream.
Though I know I should be wary, still I venture someplace scary. Ghostly haunting, I turn loose. Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
Hey guys, oh, what's going on, everybody? I apologize. The monster girl herself, Miss Piper, should be joining us shortly because I totally set my eye. I got like 5 minutes of sleep right before this, and by sleep I meant I rested my eyes, and I felt my brain do that kind of thing where it seems to be like decompressing there. I don't know, for some reason I have a vortex in my head. Now, I'm not sure if that's hyperbolic, but some of you all may have seen what we did there. Parrothead's in the audience. It's all right. It's all right. He enjoys the dancing squirrels. I apologize. I am assuming gender. I also want to do the little hair flip thingy. God, I need to get a headband. I want to get one of those shinobi things that's got like the Village of Fire or Konoha or something. Basically the thing that Naruto has, because I totally want to be Hokage. Why? Because the Hokage walks in front of other people and takes all the slings and arrows. I seem to be a glutton for punishment. Also, probably a psychopath, but these things happen. I digress, my friends. As well as we have the lovely Cherubi. as well as Jen from the Church of Entropy, one of my senpai that has helped enlighten me as well. Because within this multiverse of stuff and things, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's very interesting. I again tend to think that it tends to focus in on a particular point, and I just hear all these different smart people. And they're going on and on and on, and just maybe it's me just noticing now because, again, totally biased, but when one's going out for a run and you're like, oh, what's this? A random stream about physics and stuff. Like, oh, it's a premiere. Let me listen to this while I'm out jogging. And then you're listening and you're like, if half of what Dude Man is saying is true, this is revolutionary. And about 16 hours later, they unseal the Muon G2 results, and it's like, hold on, let me go back. You nailed it. Maybe there's actually something here. So I've been going on spreading the good word. And Jen, I also keep on hearing more and more folks talking about time, and at least time relative to us. I'm thinking stars are totally the reason. For some reason, my initial thought was photons. Now I'm leaning more towards neutrinos because, at least based upon observation and some fancy experiments I saw, I remember back, like, what was it, like 10, 15 years ago? It's like, oh, we detected like 6 neutrinos, like a mile underground, using this like extraordinarily heavy, dense water thingamajigger. And it's like, all right, that's very interesting. And now you're looking at like the new measurements and stuff, and it's like nonstop. And I'm like, all right, if that's going through everything, that would probably explain a lot. I see what you did there. This is the fascinating thing, because even like with very smart folks like Professor Wolfram and some of these other folks, when they said like, well, see, I don't necessarily have the time to explain time. It's very confusing. It's like, all right, so do you not currently have because we use it for so many different things? It's like, oh, what is the time? The time is relative. So you just keep on looking. And again, I believe they're very smart folks, or at least when I see, and again, it's when I see stuff going on within different institutions, and it's like I almost have an idea of maybe what you're talking about, because we may have skipped ahead and already had some of the answers to the test. Again, I happen to believe it's the actual essentials of the universe itself, and the sheer fact that Thad basically went out of his way to focus on the key point, just the 44 itself, just as the actual core. Because at least when I did it, you add up all the derangements, comes out to be 137. You could easily meme that, but I think he's actually going for the seriousness there rather than just that is my job. My job is to meme things into reality. Why? Because we can. And who doesn't like dancing squirrels?
오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 오빤 강남스타일
It's so adorable. We used to have this little red squirrel. We called him Spunky. This very hyper little squirrel. And at one point, my mom would put like out some seed and stuff for him. And he would be out there and he'd be like darting around. And all of a sudden, this very large rabbit, or at least compared to him, came out there. And they were having a stare off. And you're like, how does a rabbit combat a little squirrel? The rabbit starts jumping, and you're like, oh my god, he's like hopping right up in the air and everything. He's hopping in an aggressive fashion. But the squirrel stood his ground. I believe the rabbit left. I'm just saying, it's not the size of the squirrel in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the squirrel. That one had some chutzpah. But seeing again, as I am very bad at doing stuff and things, and remembering to try to invite people in a timely manner, it's okay. It's all right. We'll delve into some other sciencey things, because I saw the good professor he also had on, I believe, Gregory, Dr. Chaden earlier. And I remember having gone back and listened to one of those lectures, and I'm like, I'm hearing it's like, and again, It's like, all right, oh, we'll be right there. We'll be okay. Now I'm confusing the Event Horizon video. But at one point, one of the gentlemen was like, so I was a graduate student at the time, and then one of my advisors was like, at any minute, string theory will solve it all. This was about 30 or so years ago. At any minute, this thing that has ended up evolving into something where it's like, well, we could just kind of tweak this or that or anything there to come up with anything we want. Now, again, been a lot of extraordinarily useful mathematics that came out from it, but it's kind of like, well, it's got most of the math right, but it's just not really the correct model. That's the other thing too that I noticed that Professor Ed Whitten had brought up at one point was, well, we seem to have that like five major categories of string theory here, but for some reason they seem to all kind of be converging as well. Now, again, I am looking for things. I'm like, wait a second. So there's five facets of string theory, kind of converging to a focal point there. I just find it interesting. I'm just curious what areas they may have been inspecting and whether or not that was causally related at all. But as far as other stuff and things we got going on, because again, I am not a good planner. I just happen to like making clips on the internet, so I can do things like
Do you
this.
like turtles?
Yes. Yes, I do. And the sheer fact that I think I can mimetically rebrand combinators from S of K or S to K to S of T to basically do stuff and things because this is you people get scared for mathematics. I know I scared the crap out of me just because I still remember. I learned most of everything I knew from the Discovery Channel up and through about the 6th grade or so. Once we got there, it's like, all right, we're doing math, and the teacher one day is like, so you don't need to know this now, but this will be useful later. And then she taught us how to cross multiply fractions. Circa the 7th grade. Now that you know how to multiply fractions, let's throw in some variables and some letters and stuff like that. At that point, it's like, just move them on in the system, folks. Just move them on. And it's like, I didn't understand math for years. It's like, I literally had like the smart girl in front of me at one point turn around during one of the tests where I'm just looking at the paper and she's like, memes, no, it's this. I'm like, she literally did the test for me. To be fair, our teacher at the time, I believe, had a mental breakdown, so we had a permanent sub that actually kind of liked me. So I guess it was all just kind of let go and everything. Again, just slightly questioning some of the stuff and things going on in the education system, but it's all right. It's all right. These things happen. But yes, Jen, it's all relative, bro. It's completely all relative. But as far as some recent articles about the stuff and things that are going on, so we'll jump back into some quantum spin fluid. All right, quantum. No, not the numbers, the spin fluid, which I keep on going back to. And this is the thing. It's like we now have the tools to actually start to do this, to actually start to, like literally at home, you can start to do this. I still need to reach out to Jonathan from the Wolfram Physics Project. God, I'm so bad at this. But all I know is, well, it was probably like 6 months ago. I'm pretty sure, like him and Xerxes, they're saying it's like, well, in order to do an actual, like a real theorem prover, what we would need to do is we need to not just have a computer, we need people working with the computers. I'm like, wait a second. So what you're saying is we need human beings and the machines to work together in order to figure this stuff out? Oh, very interesting. It's almost like there's a symbiotic relationship. Basically, long story short is I think they embedded MathCoin that day in that. I'm like, all right, so if Bitcoin is essentially just the derivation of prime numbers, which is a very useful thing, or at least each Bitcoin is, I don't know, $60,000 or equivalent USD, something like that last time I checked. I'm like, if that's valuable, what if we actually had verified proofs of mathematics? that literally anybody could actually do. You just need to go through, actually put in the effort, utilize the technology that we have in hand, and I don't know, maybe provide a direct benefit to humanity itself. I'm just saying, I think these things might be useful. We could almost, I don't know, try to direct the world in a way that actually is more positive rather than just kind of being like,
I put the fires out.
You made them worse.
Worse or better?
I start a lot of fires, but I attempt to put them out. I am not always successful at these things. It's okay, though. It's okay. Knowing is half the battle. The other half, well, I'm pretty sure it's just showing up. Or at least that's what, what was his name? What was his name? He was totally running for Senate. Dr. Shiva. It's, apparently has one of the first patents for evil and everything. So, seems to be a very smart dude. So I think, ooh, this is a pro one here. I don't think I've seen this one now. No, SciTech Daily. I do not want to be automatically added here, but we'll pop in here at the moment. So I'll go up to our window. All right, here we go. As we can see here, oh, look at it. Oh, it's all wavy and sparkling. I know, it totally caught my eye. Harvard scientists observed quantum spin liquids, a never-before-seen state of matter. Harvard researchers observed a state of matter predicted in 150 years, but never previously observed. This was a new article that had come out in the past day. In 1973, physicist Philip W. Anderson theorized the existence of a new state of matter. It's been a major focus of the field, especially in the race for quantum computers. I feel like I've read this before. Yeah, I totally read this because I remember that picture. Unless they're redoing it, but then again, we didn't actually finish this article, and I didn't read through it all. All right, Where was this? Okay, so here we go. I think we ended around here. The work builds on an earlier theoretical predictions of Sanchev and his graduate student Ryan Samajar, and on specific proposal by Ashvin Vishwana, Harvard professor of physics, and Ruben Versar, an HQI postdoctoral fellow. The experiment was done in collaboration with the lab of Marcus Grenier, co-director of the Max Planck Harvard Research Center for Quantum Optics, and George Vasimer Levitt, professor of physics and science for the University of Innsbruck, Q-Era Computing in Boston. All right. The back and forth between theory and experiment is extremely stimulating, said Versa. It's a beautiful moment when the snapshot of the atoms was taken and the anticipated dimer configuration stared us in the face. It's safe to say we did not expect our proposal to be realized in a matter of months. It's always a beautiful thing when you get nice surprises. After confirming the presence of quantum spin liquids, the researchers turned to the possible application of this state of matter to create the robust qubits. They performed a proof of concept test that showed it may one day be possible to create these quantum bits by putting the quantum spin liquids in a special geometrical array using the simulator. Imagine that, utilizing geometry to help solve the ways of the world. Imagine my shock. The researchers plan to use the programmable quantum simulator to continue to investigate quantum spin liquid and how blah 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 blah. Okay, that was the same. No, it wasn't. They use create more robust qubits. Qubits, after all, the fundamental building blocks on which quantum computers run, the source of their massive processing power. Now again, at least according to some of the Wolfram things, it's like, all right, let's say we have access to a quantum computer. What's something interesting I can ask it? Like, what could I do with a quantum computer that we couldn't currently do with like a top-of-the-line supercomputer? I don't know. In theory, again, it's more of the HD of the computers, if you would. Now, what it's actually going to do, I have no idea. It seems pretty cool, and they throw the word quantum in it. It's not like anyone would use a buzzword for a number of years to try to say we're doing something. Shh. I think modern mimetic theory actually explains why a lot of that happened. We need to do a stream on that later as well, Jen. We show the very first steps of how to create this topological qubit, but we still need to demonstrate how you can actually encode and manipulate it. I think they use the lasers and stuff like that, at least according to what I recall from the other articles. So Maji said, there's now a lot more to explore. Now, they're giving the references there. Oh, let's click on this link because we can. Ba-ba-ba. What I found interesting yesterday was the sheer fact that they're creating like bacteria-sized, like quanta style things. It's like you're assembling things that like we could put under a microscope. We could actually look at. I just think that's interesting. Synthesizing topological order. Topologically ordered matter exhibits a long-range quantum entanglement. However, measuring this entanglement in real materials is extremely tricky. Now, two groups can take a different approach and turn to synthetic systems to engineer the topological order of so-called toric code. This is a perspective by Bartlett, Solinger, et al. Use a quantum processor to study the ground state and the excitations of the toric code. The toric code by quantum spin looked at a two-dimensional array of Rydberg atoms held together in optical tweezers. Yep, we saw the Rydberg atoms yesterday. Yeah, that's basically it. And God, I kind of wish I was still back in school so I could play around with those things as well. But well, I see you there. Oh, oh, well, that's these things happen. My friend Gabby, God rest his soul, I think he had like 5 or 6 Bitcoin or something like that on an old hard drive that he had loaned to a buddy or something. These things happen. These things happen. If anything increases the value of everything else. Well, I'm not exactly sure. Oh, well, who could have ever predicted that? It's okay. It's okay. These things happen. We'll figure it out someday. But as far as everything goes right now, all I
World
know
is exists on the top of a giant turtle.
it's computationally equivalent, bro. This is what I'm hearing. Rocks, turtles, people. We got some electrons. We got some stuff. We've got some things. I feel like I should do. Does it make any sense for a dummy to write, I don't know, quantum mechanics for dummies or mathematics for dummies or any type of insert X causal relationship here for dummies? Just because I might not have the gifts that other people have, but I listen to folks, I map things out, and then my mind just kind of goes to like, what's my source of knowledge that I have that might be relatable? Jen taught me about some dispersion via poop gas, and that stuck with me. Now, that might not be the most glamorous of examples, but you know,
I lose that meme. I don't know what that meme is about.
it's all right. It's all right. I'm sure many people feel that way, Professor. These things happen. Yes. It's well. All I know is they already have turtle geometry. It's a college level math textbook. I was gonna do a video on that, and I'm like, that's why I called it tortoise topology. And yes, including turtles and tortoises and everything. Yes. Well, it's a very strong argument for that, Jim. It's a very, very strong argument. Just the more and more it just goes down, I'm like, I just going through it. And this, I think, see, if I was going to do a live stream right now, well, then again, if I was just going to do a video or whatnot, I think I was going to do something along the lines of the power of algorithms, just because at least the YouTube algorithm, it's It's going to show you what you want to see. Now, if you want to see a lot of cute cat videos, they got you covered. If you want to be outraged about X topic discussed in Y manner, you're also going to find that as well. You can very easily find that. And then as you continue to do that, it will become reinforced more and more. And the content creators that create such outraged content discussed in Y fashion, their algorithm will also be bolstered in that particular fashion, creating the cyclic obliviation or something like that. All I know is physics and humanity. It just really seems to be just completely just making sense. It goes exactly how one would expect. Now that's why you need to have a little bit of a superposition. Maybe throw a monkey wrench into the whole machine every once in a while to create a little novelty, a little bit of uncertainty. Joe, I totally feel that way too. It's just I was so angry for so long. It was nonstop that I think I burnt out my rage receptors for a while. So, as well as shout out to my patrons, Joe Franco and Dave M. This broadcast is helped made possible by viewers like you. But that's the thing. And then you end up running into diminishing returns because it's like, okay, the algorithm was built up because we talked all about this. What happens when people aren't talking about that anymore? Well, if you want to, that is now you're living, if this is how you earn a living by making people angry about X topics, well, you got to keep making them angry. And if they're getting desensitized to it, it's kind of like using drugs. Again, I am not condoning drug use. I'm not a doctor nor pharmacist, but all I'm saying is, at least for me, if I am using something, it's like, oh, it might have a very strong effect. Okay. After a while, becomes normalized. One starts to become accustomed to it. What ends up happening then? Well, you need a larger shot of whatever it is that's going to cause the dopamine receptors to go off and everything. So it's going to need to be more and more outrageous and everything. So that's why, and again, I tend to think actually with Wolfram Alpha, or at least some algorithm, you could actually start to map this out. I'm curious on what the results would be of going across people's channels. And because I remember right around 2016, you'd always see it's like, insert person we like destroys all capital letters. Insert group or person we don't like here. And then over a period of time, it started to become quote unquote nuked from orbit. I guess destroys wasn't a powerful enough word for there. You needed to incorporate more hyperbolic statements as well. I'm just saying again, I look at this, I look at the cycle, I'm like, if you need to say that people you don't like are evil, and you don't have something very specific that you're calling them evil for, I don't know. Back in the day, we might have used to call those fighting words. I I'm just saying again, I'm sorry I've been holding off for so long. I've been having other people do it because I really don't want to have to meme dueling back. God. Because again, at first it was just kind of a joke. It's like, yeah, well, like, I was thinking of the Simpsons episodes. I'm like, Simpsons episodes, Dr. Serizawa, let them fight. I'm like, let the dog catch the car. If these people are evil, well, evil must be eradicated. And since you're a very brave culture warrior that is highlighting all these horrible things that all these terrible people are doing, you're going to actually have skin in the game and do it yourself, right? It's not like you're just trying to get a whole bunch of other people outraged to do your bidding and dirty work for you. I mean, that's not what a leader would do. I mean, I think that's the definition of being a shill right there. Trying to get other people that, again, reference back shortly before January 6th, whatever you might think about that. But as far as I recall, it was a mostly peaceful group of protesters that ended up temporarily sacking the U.S. Capitol. I think I do like the way Sam Harris put it. it was like watching a comment section of YouTube come alive. There were people there for all different reasons. A lot of folks were there to support their president, and there were other people who were like, "We're gonna cause a revolution, man!" It's like, again, it depends upon the observer, and also where you're getting your media from and everything. Just because I have plenty of friends where it's like, all right, well, this all makes sense and everything like that. I'm like, now I'm not saying that you're sounding like a Mr. Alex Jones there, but to be fair, Alex Jones, even in his court papers, basically said, "I am playing a character. He is an entertainer," and I stand by. If InfoWars was on Comedy Central, would anybody really have a problem with it? Again, it's the categorization. If you're going to take kind of a satirical overblow, and again, I stand also by that four of the most dangerous words on the internet are Alex Jones was right. Now, the exact way he was right, it's like, oh, turn the frogs. No, but the frogs are transitioning their genders due to some of the chemicals in the water and everything. What you're saying, yeah, it's very memeable. It's not exactly true, but there's an essence there. However, when you start hearing, oh, this hybridized humans, it's like, oh my God, you're thinking of like, was it like Sloth or something from the Goonies or something? Again, it was a human as well, but it's like, oh wait, there do exist hybridized mice that people do certain experiments with that are totally experiments. Nothing would ever go wrong. That, yeah, that's well. This is the thing. This is the thing. Oh God. We got to be careful. But here's the thing: if I'm going to go a particular direction, if that's going to be the direction to go. I have a very bad habit of monitoring myself, my dude. That's the thing. It's just I'm usually all or nothing. I've been a lot of nothing recently, but once I start going, I've seen changes happen. Sometimes for good, sometimes for really bad things. And families fall apart, yada yada. I tend to agree with that. Like, if we don't use hyperbolic language, then we're not showing some solidarity with that. It's so fascinating that this is kind of how it works. It's like, all right, one of the issues we run into humanity is the hyperbolic language that we utilize, the words that we choose to share with each other. It's like, all right, well, that was a hyperbolic statement there. It's like, well, that's not actually real. But at the same time, if you're talking from a mathematical or a physics perspective, that is reality. And again, if we was wavy particles, it makes sense to me. And the terrifying thing is a lot of this just came back from back in the day where it's like, I always like to play this game where I remember back when we had like corded, you can do it now with a cell phone, but in my mind, I remember from the corded phones, you're talking with somebody on the phone, someone else comes by, they say something to you, and then I always try to use a word or phrase that could be said to both people at the same time. So it's like, all right, I'm saying something that's hyperbolic as well as not hyperbolic at the same time. Now that I'm actually thinking this through, I'm like, if we are in the holographic membrane of the universe of stuff and things itself, and again, I'm just reading into things as well. I see you there, Nell. Welcome, Nell. We doing, my friend. But what the thing, Joe, about that is my example, and again, some people might not remember this. I've been around for about 37 levels so far, but from what I remember is Mr. Bill O'Reilly, the O'Reilly Factor, who's no longer with Fox News. I think he wears a sweater and does like a podcast. But what he would do, he did a number of segments that I remember about Dr. Tillerson. And he would put out the mimetic of Dr. Tiller the baby killer because I believe he happened to be the only doctor that would perform abortions that were later in there. Now, a number of people believe that's murder. That's completely up to them. But as far as I understand it, at least at the location it was, what he was doing was illegal. I still remember him doing a number of segments putting that mimetic, the quote unquote Dr. Tiller, the baby killer. I then remember the story about one day where an individual walked into his church and blew Dr. Tillerson's head off. Now again, individuals in their own personal actions, but I'm like, did you really not have any idea, especially if you're the top rated show in cable news, that somebody might do something crazy? I mean, statistics is kind of a thing, especially if you're pouring it on thick and if you don't really have any caveats at all. That's what I'm saying. It's like, maybe I don't have 3 million viewers. It doesn't matter if you have 3 or 3 million. You should be consistent, or at least do the best you can. I realize scalability is a thing. And one of the reasons why I at least tell myself I'm so bad with my chats now is because if someday it was flying through, there's hundreds or thousands of people in the chats. Like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with that. And it's like, I'll watch some people and it's like, oh, no, I'm totally here for you. I do this, do that. It's like, yeah, that's not scalable to a certain point. Not with one person. You need to add, just standard bureaucracy and everything as well. I see it there. Oh, welcome, LTG. How are we doing, my friend? Hold on. Hexagons, you say? It seems to be explaining a lot. Okay. Yeah. Well, Nolan, here's the thing about that. I remember on the Tim Pool video, was the a few days before January 6th. I'll get to you just a second, LDG. But I still have clips from this when I did the video where it's like, all right, a few days before January 6th, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th. I actually did like a video on this, but I believe Mr. Poole said something like this.
What would happen to this country if 1 million Trump supporters did show up? Many of them were armed. Militias were there. And they stood around buildings and said, do something about it. Trump is president.
Yeah, that did not age well. That did not age well at all. And again, you have freedom of speech. But at the same time, it's like, all right, let's go to the logical end. If we're going to get people all riled up to the point where it's like, oh my God, I need to do something because no one else is going to do it. It's like, all right, legalize dueling. Let the people that are stirring the pot show that they're willing to actually have skin in the game. Now, again, I just prefers to actually like discuss ideas and everything, but as soon as we start getting to the ad hominem attack, it's like, all right, we need to call this person evil. We need to do these things. Because about 2 years ago I had noticed, because folks have been doing a bunch of videos, oh, MTV, it's so woke, oh my God, this person is so bad. I'm like, all right, let me actually check out some of these things. It's like, did some of the stuff really interest me? Not particularly, but at the same time, I'm listening and it's like they're going over like why they use the term hate speech, which, as far as I still understand, is not a legal term in these United States, or at least recognized by the court. But the individual actually pointed out something very, very notable. It's like, well, we used to call those fighting words. And then about 2 weeks later, I was on a live stream with one of my very staunch conservative friends, who I would totally not say is woke. And he was like, I'd said something about something kind of insulting. He's like, well, memes, we used to call those fighting words. It was at that moment I'm like, pause. Time out for a second. When two individuals that will argue about almost anything seem to agree on the same thing, I take notice. Between calling them fighting words and anytime you'd ask either a Republican or a Democrat Most of them, it's like, do you think we could use a strong, viable third party? well, no. The system we have is not perfect and everything, blah, blah. I'm like, it's very interesting. It's almost like we're just going through just the standard transition of, well, if they're in power now, people will eventually realize they're quote unquote bums. They'll vote the bums out, then they'll vote us bums back in. It's just political cyclic conformality. It's the system. I say we should break the meta. Why? Because we can.
Is that a joke?
No. It's totally not a joke. But for this brief intermission.
Some people are like slinkies. It's fun to push them down the stairs and watch them fall.
See, well, either that or log. It's like do. What rolls downstairs over and bears rolls over your neighbor's dog. What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's log. It's log. It's big. It's heavy. It's wood. It's log. It's better than bad. It's good. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log. Log from Blammo.
What the fuck is going on here?
I don't know if there's like innuendo happening here or if he's just talking about lumber.
You've never watched Ren and Stimpy?
Oh, forever ago. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember this bit.
You know what? I've never watched Rim and Stimpy. I think I've watched like 2 episodes in my life, but even that was hilarious. I loved it.
It was a catchy tune.
I'm done.
Did I do wrong again, Ray?
Eve, you should be loving it. It's pure chaos. You are literally the queen of chaos.
She likes it when she starts it, but she doesn't want to finish
You know what?
it.
I don't give a shit anymore. I don't give a fucking shit anymore.
That's impossible.
The incarnation of destruction.
Yes, I totally played a full video that I did at one point, clipping out a thing from a stream or video that I did with some other people. It also allowed me at the time to do drugs and send out links to other people as well. Why? Because I can. I think it's boring just talking. Don't get me. Some folks can sit up here. I enjoy banter. I don't mind just reading and everything, but as a being of chaos myself, I like having a little bit of chaos. See, I like to think of myself as Dr. House because I watched most of that series, and I'm totally not a doctor. I'm totally not House, but I do better when there are other people around. I need people. If there were not other people around, I would totally just not survive. It just would be no bueno there as well. But I see that. Oh, and Jen, I did send you an LDG a link because I remember you were both on at one point, and I had fun, and I think Piper may have fallen asleep because I was too slow on the links and everything, and these things happen. But I did see that hexagonal thing. I'm looking at it. You're starting to terrify me because I think it's making a lot more sense now. Because now we're extrapolating it over. You can pretty much do a hypersphere, or see. All I know is at least what they're showing just within the labs. Just all of a sudden, just being like, "Oh, let's take this graphene. Let's turn it like I don't know, 1.09 whatever degrees and everything." Which playing around with Wolfram Alpha, I get things kind of close to that occasionally, and again, just me looking for things, but. If I don't know if it happens to be true, but I think I'm going to have to play around with theta more, because theta is the actual rotation thingamy. But, oh, there's a web page? Oh, this is totally rad. But I do enjoy these things just because playing around, and I'm like, the video I'm putting together that I meant to come out with before is it's now basically going to be a holiday special. I realize Hanukkah's over. I left a message for my dad with like 3 minutes to remain of Hanukkah. Not on the night, but the day, because it continues into the day, because it starts at night, because it's one of the old Hebrew traditions that I totally failed at and did not actually celebrate. God, I'm such a bad Jew. Oh, I'm Jewish on the wrong side. But I digress. Again, I can ramble on forever about anything, but it's like I'm literally just gonna be like, ooh shiny, ooh shiny, ooh shiny. Try not to break everything. Because wherever I go, I will break things. But thank you for helping prevent me from breaking things, Jen.
Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. I can see my thing moving. Yeah, I know what it's like to be alone on a stream and just feeling like you're dying on a stage, doing some sort of improv comedy. Kind of one of my fears. Always had this fear that I wouldn't be funny, you know? So I'm glad to come on and help you if that's in any way relatable to you. And nice to see you memes.
Oh, no. I see. I don't mind doing that. It's just, if there was at least something that I had initially to talk about, because I just figured, I'm like, all right, Piper, it's, maybe she has to do this or that, or maybe she's, I have no idea. It's like I have very limited information and stuff. She's also a mom. She might be having to do mom things as well. And I didn't message her until like literally the actual time after just checking earlier. But my big thing is I don't mind coming on if I got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Like if I actually have like my tabs open and everything, I've actually like done some review on articles, maybe plugged an equation or two into Wolfram Alpha, and I'm all excited about it. It's like, oh, I'll just go on and ramble about it. Like I don't got a problem doing that. It's like, all right, I'm gonna play my intro song with my good friend director Arctor, who I do need to get on here sometime. He interviewed me. Oh God, I need to interview him. It was like 2 years ago, but he's a not quite mad scientist. But I play that video. It's like 3 minutes and 27 seconds long, and then I'm like, all right, I got my intro. It's just like another 20 seconds. So I'm like, all right, that gives me time to at least send out some links and everything, and then hope that somebody shows up at that point there. But oh, here's Jen's diagram.
Yeah, I figured because you have such an amazing live streaming setup that to grab some garbage I just sent you off Twitter is probably borderline impossible because I run my live streams off a potato and grabbing grabbing images in the middle of a stream would be probably like about 10 times more complex than where I top out at. But I absolutely am in love with this one right now.
All I know
Anyway,
is Sir
what do you
Roger
think?
Penrose would be proud. I'm looking at it. I'm like, it's a Penrose diagram utilizing the spheres and the connection point. Oh wow, the purples, the ways they lines up. I like it.
Okay, I'm going to show you how I generated this because I realized, like, for the audience, is probably like, you know. Okay, so for those
Show
of you
your
who don't
original
know, for those of you who don't know already, I have had revealed to me through a lot of work the true pure form of the periodic table, which is 3D. And so you have your start out array was type packed. I'm sure you remember that one where I actually made a model of it with clay balls and they were all stuck together. And then I saw it was actually Thad that inspired me. I don't know if you remember his I think it was his last presentation, basically talking about, well, he had an image of two space-time events beside each other. I don't know if he had them labeled as such, but you remember the ones I'm looking at. They look like the bicones or whatever those things are. You know what I'm talking about, right?
It's well, it isn't usually a cone of uncertainty. I may have just only
No,
listened
you
to
don't
that
know what I'm
part.
talking about. Okay,
No,
that's
I
fine.
don't.
I'll
No, go
I'll
on.
try to pull it out. I just realized what I said was actually not clear at all. So anyway, okay, where was I? So we don't know what space-time event is. Yeah, so I made this version of it to make it more look like the standard space-time event image. And then I realized if you rotate it so that you're lining up, basically, you know, the s orbitals are the green ones, right? You're generally familiar with this notion.
Oh, the valence shells.
It's
the
yeah, like there's 7 s orbitals, and they're depicted in green in this one. So here's the original one, and that's the type pack one. And then,
Oh, the colors mean something. I literally
of course,
just got
okay.
that.
I can't believe we've gotten this. See, okay, hold on, stop.
I'm
Are you
usually
are
wearing
you fucking with me
sunglasses.
right
Things
now?
kind of takes. No. Your model makes so much more sense now. Because before I'm like, okay, I see the density aspect, and I have trouble getting around your blog, Jen. This is the thing. I'll go back. I'll be looking for things,
It's
and
written
then by the
shittily on purpose to motivate you to talk to me on your own so we can go through this stuff. What step by step, so that here's the thing, it's so difficult that I have to go through step by step of the understanding. Let's say it's a 7-step process. I got to make sure on all 7 of those steps you understand. I can't do that in a blog. You know, it would be like expecting to be able to do surgery on yourself with a pamphlet. Now, why is that not? What are the several levels of conceptual errors
I've
that a person has
attempted
made
to
if they conclude
remove a
that they can do
splinter
open
with a
heart
piece of
surgery on
paper
themselves
before.
with a pamphlet?
It did not go well, but I have yanked things out of myself.
Yeah, exactly. Don't
Yeah,
go
I
past
wouldn't recommend it. No,
don't go
I
past
wouldn't
the
recommend
splinter.
it.
It
Continue,
works.
senpai.
It works on the scale of splinters, and that's about it. Anyway, okay, all right. So then we go to the
Yeah, bet I'm
torsion
dropping the
field.
link if you want to pop in, just because she also does the physics. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd love it if anybody else would come on because it's just really nice to meet new people, especially when they like colory things. So yeah, green is S, yellow is P, and then blue D, purple F. So the idea is that that's 3 plus 1 also, but that's actually more 4 than 3 plus 1, right? Because they're all kind of not equivalent, but there's nothing to privilege one over the others. So when I say 3 plus 1 or 1 plus 3 or anything like that, when you do it too, you want to make sure you know which is the privileged one. Otherwise, you should really just say 4, right? If you think about it.
Right. Well, because we say space time because we just kind of like peanut butter and jellied it together there.
Remember, this is the smallest space-time event. Okay, so what is Wolfram always saying? What corresponds in reality? What's this math thing correspond to? This is dx, okay? But not dx, just d. Okay, you know in calculus, right? What's dx?
Well, it's the derivative of x, right? Or it's your
It's
function.
the differential
the f of
operator.
it. Okay, I was
It's the
bad at calculus.
differential operator. So when we say dy dx, we're talking about the slope at a point. And that's usually what we think of when we say derivative. If we're just looking at d, purely d. Now this is d m. Now
Okay.
what's m? Matter. This is your smallest space-time event. dm, definitionally. So dx, dy, dr, d theta, all those things are, quote, social constructs or whatever. Useful fictions that are, you could say, below information neutral or above information neutral. Like, I don't know how you want to word it, but like something would be, I suppose, information positive if it
gives
qualifies as a
us the
scientific theory.
gist to kind of continue.
It's about how much information is in the sentence versus how much information the sentence accesses.
So it's like writing 1,000 pages over something that could have been easily communicated in like a page.
Well, I just imagine that you had a bunch of people who were purity spiraling over how short they could express a thought.
I mean, I don't mind doing that. That's like sounds like philosophy.
Modern philosophy is literally a fetishization of the near opposite process of that, but we shouldn't go there. But where were we with this thing? I feel like I had a point to this, and oh yeah, basically
It's the
this
smallest
is
derivation of matter.
Space-time event. This is a space-time event. Now we're going to need to come up with a shorthand because space-time event, that's 4 effing syllables that I just don't necessarily have time for, and neither does anyone else. So any ideas?
Computation.
And we can't call it a word that already exists because computation already
Oh,
means
we need something new.
no matter how vague and nebulous, we don't necessarily need to coin a new term, right? Like I didn't need to term anything consciousness, even though the term consciousness was ill-defined. In fact, it was its ill-definedness that made it easy to define, right?
You've defined it. I won't tangent. I won't. Oh, that's why they call it tangent in a triangle, because it goes with the points. Okay. See, I'm learning so much.
Well, it sort of puts a perspective on Platonism, and it's like it's just a different ideological vantage. It's like, yeah, this is just,
I'm
how we
getting
see
happier
things.
and happier. I asked the good professor why triangles seem so important.
Well, because of the measurement limit. Because 3 is divine. Remember, 3 plus 1, essentially because there's 3 spatial dimensions. That's the most foundational reason, is the 3 spatial dimensions. Now that you can say that's a cliche or trite or vacuous or whatever, but it's like, what else would you want to ground things to than 3 physical dimensions? I mean, that's the dimensionality of crystals.
Oh,
I mean, think
they
of what's the
seem to explain a
fundamental,
lot.
what's even the fundamental quantum crystal? HF8 complement. That's the fundamental quantum crystal. Right? So you can think of this diagram here, those of you who know what Thad's stuff is the dualistic version of Thad's thing. And so can you see how it's rotating and you're aligning along the S axis? There isn't like a D axis, right? There's
Now
a biplanar.
it's doing it needs to rotate twice to get back to its original, right?
Well, it right now it's rotated 90 degrees in one direction and then maybe 30 degrees in the other. So it's gone 90 degrees in X and maybe 60 degrees in Z.
I'm not
negative
sure
60
if
in
you're
Z.
displaying for functionality or just to kind of just observe the object itself.
The point is to see how you can precipitate a hexagonal form from a originally biconical structure, because the original profile of the periodic table is biconical, and you can't really see it here. So I'm trying to find. This is the raw, like making way too many files here. I can't find anything.
Okay. Now things are starting to make more.
Scrolling through recents for like
No.
5 minutes to find anything.
See,
Like, what the fuck
see,
have I been
what I
doing?
thought you were doing is I'm just like, so are those just like a bunch of protons just kind of lining it up so we get to like element 118? Because that was my original like thought on it. I take it I was wrong.
Well, have you counted how many circles, spheres are in
I
there?
have
Sorry,
not.
there's 59. And by the way, these questions are not dumb questions. You could just ask me anytime. Like, seriously, I don't think there's anything such thing as a dumb question, and I'd be happy to answer. But yeah, there's 59 times 2 is 118, and that's your smallest space-time event. So can you see how it's actually hilarious because it's like a square circle almost. Imagine that shape. Can you see what shape that is?
I mean,
It's
depending on the
2
reference frame. I see
square
essentially like a
prisms.
vortex or yes,
All right,
2
for
tetrahedra.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to open up my art program, and I think I can just share. I can just
We're
draw
joined
you a
by
diagram.
Emmy-winning journalist Matt Rogers from Rants Who Watches. Welcome, Matt. We're just discussing the fundamental building blocks and
Oh my God, is
parameters of
somebody else
reality.
here? Oh no, they're
Oh
in the
no!
audience.
I'm addressing the chat. There are actually still people watching. We actually have some people that have paid attention here. It's very interesting. I'm realizing more and more, depending upon the observer, that to some folks they might be like, "Oh, memes, you has the wisdom," and to other people it's like, "You're just a troll on the internet." God.
Yeah, the whole troll thing. It's just like, to me, it's like if someone is a troll or isn't, and if they self-identify as a troll or don't, you're into a bit of a vague, nebulous area where you presuppose people have more self-awareness than they actually realistically can account for off the hop. Just saying. All right. So can you see what I'm
attempt
sharing?
to I attempt to do both at the same time. I'm like asymptote all the way one way, all the way the other. What's the most likely scenario
The
based
terms
upon
may
the
not
information
even
I
be
have?
useful. The terms may not even be capable of giving insight or clarity, right? So it's down to intentionality. It's down to intentionality. Do you want to? What do you want?
Hold on.
Like, because some people you can tell they get into this shit. Their intentions are either not formed or bad. And if you have not formed intentions, you're basically being drawn to the whims of your emotions. So did you want to share? And I can do the space-time thing
Okay,
real quick.
no, I
It's this
wasn't sure.
extremely
Because,
boring diagram. I realize that. So if you have just like the basic idea,
yeah,
you can understand how this is your basic, extremely
oh,
basic bitch periodic table. But
So we
Notice
get
how the
we've got
information's
the
there.
two triangles enter. Oh, okay.
You notice how the information's there, but it's like, oh
Yes.
shit, now you need to be ultra in the know to be able to read this shit. It's like intentionally vague. But if you look at the full picture, it's all built out. But the shape of
I
these
think
is
no one gets it.
sequential squares, okay? That should be obvious, but these are sequential squares. Is that obvious yet?
Oh. Oh.
And so your overall shape that you get at the end of it is a bipyramidal help me out somebody here for the love of F square bottom pyramid whatever that is. Tetra fucking excuse me.
No. A tetrahedra has the 4 sides with the 3, but okay, what you just did, I think, explains the whole orthogonality thingamajigger that we keep on running into.
Yeah, the
No. Remember, no. Think 3D cellular automata, like Rubik's cube of physics, because it's like I keep on hearing these folks, and even at the end of like Thad's book, he goes into basically like the Euler functionality and like utilizing like these like the 9x9 or basically just like a whole bunch of squares. And like when you're going through that, you're just going cell to cell and it goes around and everything. And like you keep on exploring it. And it's like, why is matter only or stuff and things only able to like turn at a maximum of 90 degrees? It kind of ends up creating a square. And again, we're gonna need to generate more stuff and things and try to test this in
You don't
some
need to
way, but
fucking preface every last thing with we might be wrong. It's like the fact that we open our mouths sort of tacitly accepts we might be wrong. We got it.
I accept
Excuse me,
this.
label my
I think
axe
you
size?
nailed it. I think you nailed it, Jen. All I know is I'm looking at that. Wait. That explains the periodic table and orthogonality. We just need to play with Wolfram
It
Alpha.
also
I'm just
explains
saying.
square circles. Just stop. It also explains square circles. What shape do you get
Wait,
if
what?
you start rotating this thing about that fixed line?
A circle. Oh.
And guess what? Shit can never stop vibrating. Why? Motherfucking uncertainty. That's right, bitches. Coherent metaphysics gang. Oh yeah. Hang on. What's up? What?
Sunglass crew.
Oh
This
yeah.
I
Y'all ready for my flat Earth debate this Saturday? Hell yeah.
it's I kind of want to do one of those because one of my other Master Ogre taught me how to troll on this internet stuff and things. God, that man would F with me so freaking much. And I'm not even sure if it was intentional. I'm not sure if he was just and God, in one of his Hawaiian shirts with the correct hat, he almost looked exactly like Master Roshi. It was one of the most phenomenal experiences I had on this early time back on the internet. But all I know is I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, I really don't want like humanity to destroy itself quite yet, just because it's like, all right, I still remember seeing string theory like posters
Just
and stuff
take
like in
Jerry
college.
Seinfeld saying, look to the cookie Elaine, and replace it with me saying, look to the quantum periodic table memes. And that'll solve all of our problems. Like quantum periodic table for world peace. Right now,
QPT?
2024.
Is
If
that already
anything's
taken?
gonna save us, it's gonna be that thing.
Well, I mean, my base, and again, I don't know this, but I'm like, I remember seeing your stuff, and it's like, all right, there's something here. This explain knowing the colors now makes a lot more sense. And then just even doing that, and the sheer fact that you could kind of fractalize that, I think also explains a hell of a lot of things. And I'm like, all right, so we're getting to the periodic table here. These are things that like we can kind of look under a microscope. That's why like those Riedman atoms or whatever, where it's like we're creating kind of like atom-sized things like this out of like almost or bacteria-sized things out of like atoms and like maybe other like fancy quanta and stuff. I'm like, this is fascinating. We're getting to do this as well. I'm looking at that stuff. I'm like, all right, so if you got the basic fractal of reality itself, And I'm like, all right, you're able to tessellate because basically any object has 17 tessellations and everything, or at least standard tessellations through the thing. And it's like, well, there are 17 elementary particles that we have different measurements and things for. It's like, I think it's all kind of layering together. And again, I am looking for this, but I do believe in the power of algorithms. And as we started this stream, I was talking about the power of algorithms.
Would
They
you
will show
believe
you
me if
what you
I
want to
told you
see.
my entire life is based on algorithms made out of principles?
I mean, I have attempted to resemble that myself. I often fail, but all I know is through my life, I'm like, all right, life tells me I should probably do this. This is what I want to do. Let me assume it's wrong because I'm probably very selfish and just want to do this for my own purposes. So let me do the other thing. It creates very awkward moments, especially with human beings. Oh, don't harm animals or children. But all I'm saying is, yes. You
I'm
asked
glad
if
you
I could
got.
believe you. Yes.
I'm glad you understand a little more about the quantum periodic table and stuff. Because when I first saw it, I was like, "Whoa!" And then nobody was really that into it. And now I'm seeing people get into Thad's thing, and it's like clearly it's the issues. The issues on my end, to some measure. Because like we can't
you can be
establish
very
it.
you can be very aggressive. See, and again, this is just my opinion. I think it's the fact that you're using the science with your religion. And as soon as you start having the reality of belief, even though it might be the same thing, but as soon as you start doing that, it's like people, you start hating on somebody's religion, they're gonna call them fighting words and stuff like that. So it's like I feel like that's where it comes in because you can be aggressive, and you're also good at being aggressive.
Yeah. I need to become good at hiding how good I am at being aggressive, I guess. Like the next level of finesse or some shit. I just don't know anymore.
That's why I go with like the comic book style look.
Well, you've got people, you don't have half the internet hating you, and that's an extremely very generous on myself underestimation of the actual statistics. Just kidding. Yeah. See, my last debate was like horrible comments, and I'm trying to think, should I try to go for just as horrible of comments again, or should I try to go for a different goal? 'Cause now
I
it's just
honestly would
sort of
have liked to
fun.
see you have a discussion and actually present like your because the thing was, you're arguing from different positions where he had no reference point for any of the stuff you're saying. So for him to say if it's right or wrong, he's just going on his just base priors and stuff. If he's never had any conceptualization, how he's going to argue against something he doesn't even know? I mean, he could just
No,
like
the whole
vomit
idea
words,
is
but
like they keep ranting on about novel testable predictions. I give them novel testable predictions, and they can't recognize that that's what they are. So it's like all that blabbering about novel testable predictions, and if you can't recognize a fucking novel testable predictions, you want to drag me into some garbage that's not a novel testable prediction and never will be anything other than an interpolation between morphogenic resonance. Well, there's no conversation to be had. It was basically like there's an impasse there. Do you understand? Because I'm just like, where do I start?
I tend to think you're correct because
Because I got to say, you're lying at that point, don't I? You don't actually care about the novel testable predictions because you haven't even listened to what I said to see if it is a novel testable prediction. Not to mention, how the fuck would you know? You know what I mean?
It's kind of hard to say at some point. And welcome live at the love show. Oh my god. Hold on. I'm putting you downstairs. Change your mic. There's way too much feedback right now. But pop on, just pop back in. Just change your audio settings. All I know is see, for me, it's like I also try not to. I try to call out people for saying mean words on the internet, but at the same time, it's like I also acknowledge their words on the internet. I don't really care. So
Well, I
it's
think the
it.
idea is not to be mean unless you have to, and it's not clear what it means to have to be mean.
I try to avoid being mean because I also see. I feel like if you're going to escalate to the point of aggression and stuff like that. And this is one of the things I think Duvid kind of gets because he's like, well, laughter is replaces violence. I'm like, I don't think that's always the case, but in awkward situations, I think people
It's
laugh
become a
because
fucking bit for him. It's literally a comedic bit to deny that he, it's like this quantum thing. It's like, no, don't even try to play that you don't like humor, bro.
no. Well, Duvid's humor, I actually enjoy Duvid's humor, which because
He's
every once in a while, well, he
uproariously
refers to
funny.
his merchant because sometimes he'll just get that quick merchant quip in, and he looks to the camera. And I see the look on his face, and I'm like, oh, he's pulling the
It's
merchant card.
100% tight packed, vacuum sealed bait. Sometimes, not every time,
Yeah.
but when he gets that look, you know that there's just a twinkle in his eye that he's wanting.
Oh,
you to
he's
take that bait
loving
on
it.
some level.
He's loving it. Then again, people that don't laugh, well, I don't know. Laughter is a beautiful thing, but I do think I have known other people
Well,
that haven't laughed.
are you familiar with my model of the mind and how that makes predictions? Because it explains laughter quite effectively. You understand that we go around trying to create a self-image spontaneously. We don't have to, do anything other than eat and, basic necessities to spontaneously be driven to create a self-image.
Okay.
Now, what we then seek to do once it's got some type of stable coherence is to maintain a perception of stable coherence. And a failure of that starts with letter C, cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah, I
Okay,
muted
so
a little
what
bit,
is-
Love Shack, because you were still getting some feedback.
So we don't need cognitive dissonance.
Oh God. Try
Yeah, that's
saying
basically
something
completely
again, or
non-functional
else it's
microphoning.
yeah. Try saying something again. No, dude, it's not. We're not going to be going on that much longer. We'll talk to you. I'll just, yeah, maybe next time. It's just you need to get a better connection. I just don't feel like blowing up my ears or anyone else's. So, see, this is why I pitch myself as a fascist pacifist. Because now I can be like, all right, this is my show for whatever reason. Yeah, don't worry about it, man. It's okay. Just you work it out. And I like having people on, different folks. But if you annoy me, I will employ the fascism and fascist pacifist.
Well,
God,
it
it's a
basically
turn. Well,
sounds
no,
like-
Well, I'm describing what you're saying right there. How do I stand by the principle of free speech if at times I just don't even want to have to deal with people? How can I justify that without saying I'm censoring them? Well, I'm going to call myself a fascist pacifist. It's a terrible thing to have to do, but self-continuity.
I just wanted to say real quick before I address what you're saying, which is more complicated, that it does sound like the microphone has collapsed onto itself. It's like a mechanical failure. I don't know if you agree with that. It's like kind of seems like the electricity's trying to get it going, but the separation is not there anymore to make the vibrator work or whatever. Anyway, back to what you said. Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the grease. You're essentially subsidizing. So you're going to get more of whatever you subsidize. But you can't ignore bad behavior because that's a form of a subsidy too. So it's like, okay, it's tricky. But yeah, you
How do you let it
more
go?
or less want to assimilate principles so that your actions, there's no such thing as an action that transcends, and it's a very common misconception, like an action that is universally good or bad. No. Intentionality is what clarifies what you should act, how you should act, or what action should be taken. That's why you need protocols, so that it's essentially you want it very clear when whatever protocol's been broken, so you can just leap into action and stomp it right away. So that happens through I don't want to say clairvoyance because that has a bad baggage, but like transcendence, awareness, and that starts with consciousness itself, which is this we don't like cognitive dissonance notion. So where does laughter, just as a first hypothesis, where would you say, as a budding scientist of the mind, that what role does laughter play in the cognitive you call it the cycle of psychic continuity or the cognitive dissonance phenomenon?
Coping function.
Perfect. So that's a great. So I don't know if we want to say a function because a function is something.
I meant to say
specifically
mechanism, but you were
depicted.
talking about function, so my mind blanked out because marijuana and stuff like that. So I went to function.
So if we laugh, that means that we're basically avoiding a worse form of cognitive dissonance.
Well, it's like
What
an
are the
awkward
options,
situation.
right?
Well, we'll take what just happened right there. It's like, all right, he uses this. He probably should have used this word. Then he just completely explained, admitted that he was utilizing certain substances that may or may not have been legal at one point, and the fact that we were talking about earlier just was in my mind. God, the professor was right. We are kind of like computers, or maybe computers are kind of like us. I don't know.
So notice how our ability to do these demonstrations, quote unquote proofs, or whatever you want to call them, is entirely predicated on accepting these axioms on which they're built. That's the notion coming up again of a metaphysical primitive in some sense that we say, well, if this is how it works, we're going to run this method a gajillion times and we're going to get, like, what do they call it on Wolfram's thing? Emergent complexity. That's the
Well,
holy grail, isn't
simplicity,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a couple of very big. Well, dude, he's throwing a gun. He's going full Rui at it. It's like the study of rules themselves, which is trying to encompass everything. Power
The
to the
rules
guy.
don't change. That's why I like want to tell him, like, the rules don't change, man. Like, why would you want the rules to change? Like, how much can you remember across one lifetime, or sorry, across one death time, I guess? Not much.
Well, I see. I think that's why he built like Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha to basically do the whole Library of Alexandria thing, and for the people.
Okay, so
Basically,
what's
it's
the
an Ask
fallacy
Jeeves
there?
that works. Okay.
What's the fallacy there?
Well, you're never going to be able to finish it.
Upward delegation. So it's the fallacy that the transhumanists make. Goes, oh, the computer will fix it for us. Duvet actually makes this fallacy a lot. Not a very well-known fallacy. The fallacies that are actual fallacies, those aren't not very well known in modernity. Fake bullshit fallacies and dog shit rhetorical techniques like Socratic that I won't go into right now. But upward delegation is a flawed concept because delegation, by definition, is downward. Like if you punch into a calculator 8 times 8, that's a delegation. You see why? Because you could have done that yourself, right?
Well, I think that's why the good professor. It's basically he basically has been more or less hands-on for most of the stuff, building it over the past 35 years, delegating as well. And my personal just my intuition tells me that your optimal scenario would be kind of like, rather than Socratic, I would say it's almost like, coincidentally, maybe some would say dualistic, or maybe monadic, if you would, in that
Well, there's
you got the
dualism.
human,
Okay,
you got
listen
the
to me. Listen
computer,
to
and you
me.
work
Listen to
together.
me. There's dualism between the monad and the material. I just don't want you to get confused on this. This is a very important point. If you embrace the monad, there's a tacit dualism in there already, in the sense that the monad not here and we're here. That's dualism because there's two realms. See? Just wanted to be clear that dualism isn't just one thing. It's just the property of being dual, not a particular version of it.
Oh, well, this is even more clarifying, because that would explain the holographic universe. I was watching the IAS's Twister unification thing, and the guy's like, "Well, it doesn't have Lorentz symmetry." It's like, you're trying to break Lorentz symmetry. No, because when you look at it this way, there is no Lorentz symmetry. It is chiral, but you got to look at it from these perspectives as well. And a lot of folks are like, but I think we're right. I see you there, Zach.
How
I
much do you
see you there.
understand eigenvectors?
No.
What are we doing with an eigenvector decomposition? P inverse AP equals D. That's one of the most
We're
beautiful
talking about a
equations ever written.
transformation of something going a particular way in velocity.
If you want to pull up a page, I would say diagonalize a matrix, or eigenvector or eigenvalue. Any of those on Wiki is probably all right.
I'm putting the thingy in the chat. Did I even do that right? I don't know. I think I did. Okay, I think I did.
Oh, chaos candidate!
Oh no, we got
Oh!
I like Arwen's philosophy, because she comes at it from a different perspective than what I do, and she also taught me that dunking Twinkies in milk is very useful. But all right, so
You can't put a price tag on that kind of knowledge. But
wisdom.
eigenvalues, eigenvectors specifically. What are the eigenvectors? They are the columns of P. What's P inverse? Well, obviously, it's just, the matrix that when you multiply it by P, you get I, which is The identity matrix, which is the matrix equivalent of 1, which is a matrix that has zeros everywhere except for on the main diagonal, which is top left to bottom right.
Oh, here
Follow
we
along
go. Oh, welcome,
Hey,
Marlon.
y'all. Hey.
This is Jen. She runs the Church of Entropy YouTube channel. She is one of my senpais. I've learned a lot from her.
Oh, hey, Jen.
Hi.
Good to meet you. Hey. I'm sorry I'm late.
I'm sorry, I don't really go on camera very much. I'm kind of an introvert. As you can see, like I'm even
Hey.
an introvert in my own house. I gotta wear sunglasses because like my own reflection kind of scares me. But hey,
I
really
love
good to
those
meet you.
glasses. Those are
Thank
awesome.
you.
They're cool. How y'all doing?
Ah.
Y'all talking deep?
We by breaking the multiverse, I apologize. We're attempting to assemble the multiverse. And by that I just mean the universe.
Okay. All right. I'll try and follow along. Y'all get deep.
Okay, so okay. I'm gonna share my screen right here.
Okay.
Up on the window, eigenvalues and eigenvectors. All right.
Okay.
I
I
feel
learn a
really
lot,
bad.
Jen. I learn a lot from this channel. I'm a student. I'm not. I have to learn
That
what
is
this stuff is.
amazing. Have you seen any of the Thad videos?
I have not. The Thad videos?
Thad
Okay.
Roberts is a guy who, using a mathematical program called Wolfram Alpha, was able to just make a very important mathematical discovery about physics, actually, which helps me a lot in my theory and as a like additional demonstration of several principles that I've ragged on about.
Basically, Arwen, you know how like you run across something on the internet, and then like a couple of years later, everyone seems to be talking about it, but
Yes.
you knew it existed for. That's basically what we're talking about.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so in a couple of years, everyone's going to be talking about P inverse AP, the invertibility of eigenmatrices and spherical coordinate systems. You heard it here first, folks. Just kidding. The idea is that all that to say is that when you diagonalize a matrix, you're sucking, vacuuming, hoovering the information out of the matrix and cramming it, shoving it, bloody-blying it into the vectors.
Okay.
Why is that
See,
important? The
whoa,
matrix is
this is-
basically...
go on.
Go ahead.
My base thing is, because I was listening to this in the Twister unification talk last night, and I've been hearing it more and more. It's like, well, you would think it's like we have this matrix to like represent reality itself, and then we plug it in and it works. It's like, that's very surprising. Why the heck would that even work? I think this is why Professor Wolfram is
'cause
doing the whole
God.
meta mathematics. That's a good explanation as well.
Yeah, there are always, and this is what I have found. There are always bigger things at play that we can't always plug into, and we don't always know. And that used to be the problem I had with some, I shouldn't say science, some scientists, is science became their religion. And they never, once they found that and they found those answers, and that's awesome because we need these answers and we always need to be open to just searching and looking and experimenting and just because you never know what you're going to discover. But that's all that they plugged into. They never thought about things beyond that. And it's kind of like, what if there is something out there? You know, you've got your natural and then your supernatural. What if there is something that's affecting all of this and you're not taking that into consideration? It's kind of like what we were talking about one time is that, you know, technology and science is magic that's been explained. And on the flip side, magic could be just unexplained science and technology.
Any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes. So there's always kind of two sides to the coin there. And I'm meeting more and more people that are kind of they have scientific minds and I don't, and that's why I'm so fascinated by people who do, because they help me understand it and they make it appealing and palatable.
Well,
But
the idea with science is basically, at least for me, is you know that feeling when you make a terrible judgment and then you feel horrible?
Yes.
You know, like imagine you just never wanted to feel that again.
Yeah.
Science is how, because it's like, okay, I reacted to a situation. To some extent, it's on me, which means if I had my basic position is like, if you expect something to happen, you're not going to go off into such a shock or tizzy over it to actually get traumatized by it. Not that you should be expecting all manner of things to happen to you, but it's, basically possible to not have
It makes sense. There's security
unexpected
in
things.
that. Yeah, there's security in that.
People turn to science for the comfort. You know that
Yeah.
good feeling when you're accepted by your friends and there's that like almost glowing happiness of joy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but for a different object. The object being, I'm not going to feel like a fucking dumbass for having such a shit judgment again, because I'm going to have good judgment this time. So I'm going to figure out what it means to have good judgment and go on that,
Yeah.
quest.
That
Which
makes
then
a lot of
becomes its own sort of thing, right? Because I
Mhm.
don't know, we talked about it a little bit before, but on a very primitive level, we're just spontaneously drawn to create identity. And this is why we
Mhm.
suffer, because we identify things that are actually non-self.
That makes a lot of
That
sense.
Yeah,
It does.
and I'm glad that it's not completely gibberish, because this is sort of the point where I'll lose most people, but this is why I like this thing being big enough that there's now not just one type of person involved, and people who can actually I could appeal to you on an emotional level, and some people have
Yeah.
like reasoned their way out of the validity of their emotions. And that's where you don't want to, someone like you, if I might be so bold, like, you don't want to presume that they necessarily know, because they may not actually be in touch with their own awareness, which is part of knowledge and wisdom. I mean, to be
Oh.
truly able to speak authoritatively on something, it needs to be connected deep inside to your core.
Yeah, I totally get that. I describe myself as air. I'm like all over the place, and I need to be grounded. There are times when I have to be grounded in something solid or something tangible. And I may not understand all this, but I'm attracted to it because it's grounding, it's knowledge. It's
Yay.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to sound naive, but it's like I could be away with the fairies if I let myself. I've always been that way. And when I find things that are kind of like that, make me pause and make me focus and make me stop and think, and use my mind and try and even if I have to put it on a common sense level, or even if I have to translate it to a metaphysical level, I still, it helps ground me, and it helps kind of calm me down a little bit and keep me focused. But anyway.
It's got cool pictures, and it does help broaden
Yeah.
you. Well, no, I've noticed this. I've noticed this.
does.
Even just trying to like run like my own personal algorithm and stuff like that. Just even while like out jogging and everything, going over the same topology that may be in different states. Whether the ground is cold, it's going to be more firm. Whether it's wet, guess what? It's going to be soft. I might be like more likely to slip. There happens to be some inclement weather going around. There might be some sticks or stuff on the ground. I know this because I've fallen on all those things before, but I've noticed over the past like year and a half now, and I will go through the same area, depending on the amount of light, depending on my level of visibility and everything. Now there are things where I would literally just trip and completely fall and wipe out before. Now it's to the point where it's like literally I ran across something I would have normally tripped, but my body was so used to those situations. I also had it compartmentalized, in my opinion, probably microtubulized. That might have something to do with it, just in order to help me react. So all of a sudden, I start tripping. My body just was traversing the terrain in a particular way that adapted to it. So therefore, I did not fall that time.
That's knowledge.
It's basically I'm running a computer function just for myself. I'm in a similar situation. These random variables come up. How do I adapt to this with minimally harming myself? It was also very interesting running in the height of winter last year with like a plow coming almost like 8 inches from me. Or so it's like, oh, if I was over another foot, I'd probably be dead right now. Survival is a very natural instinct.
Yeah. And with that comes security. Like you said, with knowing your terrain and being familiar with it, that comes security, because you know what you're going to come up against, or at least you have more of an awareness, and you're not.
Imagine if you could never, if you could be never wrong. Not that is not the same as being always right, but imagine if you could be never wrong. How would you feel about a life like that?
You know what? I personally, what would be the challenge in that? What would be the experience or the excitement? if
How
you
would
were
one
never
learn?
wrong? Yeah.
Well, let's take a look. Welcome to what might
my
be our
whole thing is
universe.
I just never want to be wrong. I know it's not possible to always be right. That's just that's ego. If you get that notion, that's just
yeah.
What is it? The devil on your shoulder whispering in your ear some bad ideas. But just I want to tell a story on this. But like I've had visions like this since I was a kid. I don't want to say I can see this, but there's something like this that I can see that is the sky. Instead of being green in the background, it's
Joe
blue
actually
sky.
Joe actually put into words when I was just starting to run through my head. It's like, even if you weren't necessarily wrong, you could still be mistaken. I mean, everybody makes.
Part of never being wrong is making mistakes on a regular basis. Is called failing upwards, a controlled mistake situation, and basically like optimizing your training for error tolerance.
Consistent error correction.
Incorporating into
Okay.
your model
Yeah.
that there's going to be
Okay.
definite mistakes. I mean, come on. How many times have I stubbed my frickin' toe?
Yeah, we're all human. Well, I fell down a bunch of
Mhm.
times, but now just I have things incorporated into thing. I'm still gonna fall on every. Heck, I felt like a week or two ago. I got this nasty thingy on my finger. I think it's healing up.
Ow.
But yeah, it sucked. It sucked so bad. But I continue to incorporate that. And then Nolan asks, "Oh, hello, oh, that's not Jason Mimosa."
No, it's not. But
And
that's
then,
okay.
well, here's the thing. Well, Nolan, this is the thing, because Nolan, in my opinion, is part of my trolling community. But some of the things he says, I'm like, it's very profound. How do we make it so everyone else is not wrong?
That is
Transcendent act of
actually
God?
not what you want, because it's not your job to interfere in other people's lives. It's your job to fix your own life. And so you've framed it wrong in terms of a perspective.
That was very Professor Peterson of you.
Well,
You know,
I
the
was going
Canadian
to say
thing.
I do agree with that because
Sorry, I thought you were
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say the free will thing. It's not real, but it's almost a political tool in the sense that to make everybody else not wrong would in some meaningful way interfere with the perception of free will. And even though, we've talked about this for years and it's not fundamentally real, we can't isolate the meaning. If people think it's real in some sense. That's
And
all.
isn't there truth and then there's subjective truth? There's like absolute truth.
It depends on your definition.
And then there's
this is a thing. It's literally back to the old Bill
is
Clinton.
science truth?
It depends on what your definition of is.
It's a good question, though, and the answer is that
I'm simple.
There are
is.
there are multiple definitions of truth that can be conflated easily because some stuff feels true, quote unquote, that is actually contrary to the laws of physics because our consciousness is essentially an inverter of the natural signal of universal consciousness. So our intuition for certain things is inverted. And that's, something I could bust out a proof that would require a dissertation of hours into signal processing.
We need to write a paper, Jen. We need to write a paper. Here's the thing. You keep on throwing yourself under I'm looking at these things. I'm just like, let me take your knowledge. Because I'm actually a halfway decent writer for some things, and at least being able to address it to a broad audience, because I realize you're very blunt about things, but at least from my experience within academia, folks will just tune you out. and everything. So it's like I'm happy to massage.
Then why are you
something.
sending me messages about such and such schools catching up with us? Princeton? Because now we got Princeton playing off of what's the other one? Berkeley. That's great.
Well, to be fair, there have
That's
been
wonderful.
papers out there and everything for a while, and they're continuing. And now we're starting to see some experimental results, and this is where it gets exciting because now you can throw a whole bunch of cool images and be like new physics and stuff like that. And once they start seeing bad stuff in
Should
your
we
stuff
call
and
this
everything,
the square circle?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This image
No,
right
no, no.
here.
The squared circle. It ain't just wrestling anymore, folks. Dude, no. Oh my God. You saw
I know.
No,
I
no,
know.
no, no,
I
no,
know.
no, 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 not even the physics thing, the mimetic thing that I've been looking for. Because okay, here's the thing. On this Internet of Stuff and Things, we went through a couple of years ago the period of blood sports. Internet blood sports. IBS, if you would, some may refer to it as. And what do you have? You have people having a debate, which is basically them just throwing a whole bunch of ad hominem fighting words at each other to see who can get the upper hand or something like that. Then you'd have what I call mixed mental arts, where you'd have like a Professor Peterson, Professor Zizek, and they'd be discussing something in a large forum. And there's these two academics going at it. I was looking for the hybrid. I was looking for literally the professional wrestling term that I could use for the hybrid of that. So basically, you could have like an internet kind of style brawl, but you're actually getting like some real science in there. Maybe it's not quite fully exact or everything, but you're communicating a message and getting people interested in it. And of course, it's taken directly from professional wrestling, as you just coined it, the squared circle. I love it. My rant's over. I'm good. Oh man. I think I need a button.
Although I do want to say something about Jen's bluntness. I like that. I like that. And I wonder sometimes, particularly in academia, it's been a long time since I've been to college, but like the layperson, like me, appreciates straight talk, appreciates that straight shooter. This is what I'm saying, A, B, C. Great. And sometimes I wonder in academia if you don't have to get a little fluffy and a little soft because so many egos are involved.
I
don't know. I could be wrong. But
The 42-point words. It's like, are they necessary? It's like you're at like a prestigious university. We know you're pretty smart. Do you need to try to keep on presenting the image to make people think you're smart? Oh God.
that's my point. People in academia, especially on those really high levels, they're also damn brilliant that sometimes it's like you almost have to one up one another. Just why can't y'all just talk straight?
Wow.
And say, this is what I mean. This is what I'm saying, instead of having to, you know,
That's what Jen just said.
soak those egos,
Self-image.
stroke those egos, and
Self-image.
just
They're trying to present their image not only to themselves to convince themselves of things, but to convince other people. So I'm like, wait. If we're all kind of acting in a maybe not quite fully false way, but a not precise way that we perhaps could, we're throwing things a little bit off. And then if you continue to multiply that across, I don't know, most all of humanity, is our current state really all that surprising?
Yeah. You got peasants like me who just want you to talk straight so we can understand what the hell's being said.
I don't want people to think that other people necessarily know what the flying fuck they're talking about, though, just to be clear on that. I'm not talking about either of you. I'm just saying, like,
but
my number one thing would be when dealing with
Tim.
anybody is to don't presume that because they're using jargon that they know what the hell they're talking about. They may or may not. And a lot of these ideas are not well-founded.
I've met some really brilliant, stupid people. I've met some incredibly intelligent, blow your mind away with their knowledge, but they don't know anything except what they know, if that makes any sense. They cannot connect and they cannot relate to those of us who have to work at understanding this, or it has to be framed in a way where it's simple and we're like, okay, I get it. Because if you use too many words and you add stuff in there, and if you're intelligent and you try to make yourself sound intelligent, you're going to lose your audience.
People
are going
feel
to
like
be
you're
like
talking down
talking
to
down
them
to them,
rather
and
than
it's like,
talking
look,
with them.
I may not know all this, but I'm not stupid. I want to understand it and I want to learn it. But my
It's all
brain just may not work the same way. So let's find a way to where I can understand it.
I have a real quick story and an adage before Jen goes into my green screen here, which I'm so happy right now. I am so freaking happy. But okay, so the adage was I used to work doing facilities at basically it's kind of a youth detention facility. It basically we had kids on all different levels of the spectrum as well as some YDC overflow and stuff as well. And there was a story I was told before I got there that at one point, one of the kiddos there, he wanted a raft, and people were like, well, "That's kind of weird. Why does he want a raft?" And they're like, "All right, you do this, you're good. We'll end up getting you a raft." So he ended up getting his raft. And he blew up his raft in his room and everything. Now, apparently, he didn't just want a raft. There was a reason he wanted that raft. He wanted that raft, so he came up with a way to basically create an incendiary device that ended up creating enough smoke. He set off basically a sprinkler, and when those old sprinkler systems, they pound out water. What also happens when the sprinkler systems goes off is the doors that are normally locked become unlocked as well. So his whole plan was, I'm going to set off the sprinkler system, it's going to unlock the doors, and then I'm going to paddle out of this place. It would have worked too, except the raft was too wide for the door. Now somebody that was in basically a kind of an institutional facility. Don't tell me that's not intelligence there. That was an incredibly intelligent plan. I wouldn't have thought of something like that. But it's the sheer fact that, Arwen, to go back with what you were saying right there, it's like, it bothers me. And again, people might disagree with that. People, when they're like, oh, people are dumb, people are done. Because that really hasn't been my experience. It's people know what they know, often well. But when they're confronted with things that don't know about, they often just default to what their friends and people they know and trust are saying, and that might be wrong, but that's just our default modus operandi. I'm sorry, Jen, I rambled while you were showing us two beautiful tetrahedra. But this is the thing. This is why I like having different perspectives as well, just because Arwen will say words and I'll be like, oh, that was absolutely fascinating. I didn't conceptualize it that way, but you said in just such a simple way that I'm like, you said what I was trying to communicate more effectively in 5 words than I did over the past 3 minutes. It happened.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. But yeah, and some of us have never heard this stuff. I was a theater and a music
have never
major.
heard this stuff. Just like most people have never heard this stuff, and the reason is because, well, what's the reason? Memes, help us out. Don't make me say it.
Because they haven't necessarily seen it. My thing is, I think folks might have different glimpses of stuff like this, but they don't necessarily know how they're supposed to try to conceptualize this. It's like, all right, I had a thought in my head. Why was that thought there? I have no idea. I'm gonna go watch a football game or something, which is totally fine. But
And we do tend to gravitate towards what our, I don't want to say our primal, maybe our natural instincts are, or our natural, not instincts, interests.
Humans are herd animals.
Yes.
I mean, it's unclear to what extent civilization has made us even more herd or social, or however you want to word that, right? But
exactly,
hyper social
basis of comparison
which kind of
wise, this is what happens if you look up space-time event on Google. These are the images that come up. So I mean, the stuff I'm saying, I don't want to say I'm the only one saying it, but not a lot of people say this stuff.
A lot of these ideas have been around for years, but they're ideas that haven't really been formalized yet. That might be a better way to say
it's
it.
very hard it's hard to demystify mysticism. That's what makes it mysticism, right?
That is true. Sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith.
Well, it's like You don't need to take a leap of faith for mysticism, actually. You can just judge the result of it.
Well, when you're talking, let's define mysticism, because I may be thinking of something completely different when I think of mysticism than what are you talking about when
The
you say
fact that
mysticism?
absolute knowledge, not knowledge that is in some way mysterious, i.e., not self-evident.
Okay.
There's gatekeeping in that.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
will
mean.
agree with that. Okay, by that definition, absolutely, I will agree.
So-
And I will agree with the gatekeeping too.
There's sort
I
of
will definitely agree with that.
There's two questions. There's, can you manifest any effect you want, mysticism wise? Like, let's say all the stuff they talk about is actually possible, and
Like the manipulation of energy, the manifestation to get to manifest what you want in your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
way more than that, but we could start there, sure.
Okay.
Let's say that's all true. Crap, I forgot where I was with this. Help me out. What the hell were we just talking about?
Sorry,
They're talking about space-time events and ideas that people have had that seem to be coming into formalization now. That
Mysticism, yeah, and the reason why we can't do that, right? So if you want an example of why it's hard to have these kinds of combos, look at the talk between Deepak Chopra and Richard Dawkins, where he's like, well, you've got to meet these standards of scientific rigor. And it's like, fuck you, asshole, you don't have any knowledge. So there's a bit of a problem with who has the burden of proof. And it's because mysticism is hard to establish as scientific for many reasons. But I really think it's just that people don't understand science. Like, I flat out asked someone who's a professor of philosophy, mind you, like, what's the power of science? And he said consensus. And I'm like, literally, that is not the power of science. That's nothing. That's just tacit almost.
Is
The power of
that
science
why
is
we?
predictive models. Like, how could you not think that? It's mind-boggling. So when people like T-Jump are like novel testable predictions, and this guy over here doesn't know why science is good, or doesn't have a good answer to it, arguably, I'm, right. There's a bit of, anyway, back to the original point with mysticism. If you can manifest anything you can think of, is that the same as absolute knowledge on reality?
No, I don't think so.
So there's a question about that. That's a mystical question that can only be answered presuming all these aspects about this type of knowledge. So that's the gatekeeping, I guess, that it's built into the nature of the knowledge, that it's mysterious for reasons of having an absolute aspect as well as a relativized aspect. That
I agree.
It's very hard to know, like, how do you go from relativized, seemingly absolute to truly absolute? And that's where this example comes in, because it's like, well, this is what we thought we knew about space-time events. But as it turns out, well, we didn't really know that much, because it turns out this is really, in a way, the only space-time event. And then looking at it from different purviews and noticing that it's two of these square pyramids. I looked them up. 2 square pyramids put it on top, like put with their tips together, I guess. That's the shape, and that's your basic space-time event. So
Basically, to give you a narrative there, I'll get back to you, Noam. To give you a real quick narrative, Arwen, about basically what was going on, it's Wolfson, Professor Wolfram Street. He's the dude that has Wolfram Alpha. It's basically what runs like our digital assistants for like Siri and like Alexa and stuff like that. The guy that was doing that, I saw Jen in there at the Church of Entropy. I'm like, oh, there's a cute girl talking quantum. Let me subscribe over here. And then I'm like, all right, start listening. And I come on, and she's presenting this model to me. And this model, shortly after I met Jen, probably within a few months, all of a sudden, I came across this other gentleman who we've referenced several times, Dad Roberts. He has a YouTube channel as well. You can totally check him out if you care to. But his model and stuff, long story short, the geometric object that he ended up discovering, that was discovered in the 70s by, I believe, a Mr. or Professor Thurston, it was called the hyperbolic figure 8 knot. And basically, it's a hyperbolic knot. It's the simplest balanced knot with the lowest volume there. Basically, the two things that are simpler as far as knots go are a circle and then a trefoil knot. It's like the 3 knot. But
No, not a circle. No.
the unknot. I apologize. Thank you for
It's
correcting me.
well, maybe you should think of it as an autofillating straw.
I'm not going to disagree with you on any technicalities, and
Do you feel
I'm just gonna say
inhibited
you're
to
right.
say autofillating straw for some reason? It's
I
highly
would like
technical
to
here.
say that. Oh god. Why did you put that meme in my head? Now I'm gonna start using it. I'm gonna start. She taught me about black holes. No, she was correct about black holes. I was using black hole and singularity interchangeably, and she's like, "Oh god." This is all I know is when I'm listening to people and they tell me things, and the more I learn, I'm like, well, they were right, or at least they were not wrong. I was incorrect. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy to learn. I'm happy to. But basically, that model, the complement of it, which I think explains a lot of modern field theory, it's essentially generated from 2 tetrahedra that you basically mix together. What Jen's saying here is for the quantum periodic table, it basically is 2 tetrahedra, except rather than having like the total of 4 sides, basically like a 4-sided die. This is the one that has 5 sides. Wow. Okay. Hearing those words come out of my mouth now, things are making even more and more sense.
That's the beauty of it. Coherent metaphysics. Okay, it's grounded in very few primitives. Remember, for a while I was using one primitive. Remember when I was only saying spheres? How annoying that was. Sorry, go ahead, dear.
What is this layperson? I mean, what y'all are saying is fascinating, but it's layperson. What does this represent, and why is the shape significant?
Take it away, memes. I'll put up another image.
You know how the periodic table kind of, you have this thing, it's kind of laid out, and it's kind of like a U and everything. That is basically conceptualizing what it essentially is for I think because the way it works, and again, I'm literally just, some of the stuff is just kind of starting to click right now, is basically that has 59 spheres in it. If you double that, you get up to the maximum possible element we can create, which is element 118. So basically that is half of that. So basically it's the simplest compactification to represent the periodic table and like the way the electrons and stuff kind of go around.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a different interpretation. It would also probably make a lot more sense, and it's also very similar to the quantum model that Mr. Roberts had actually been designing as well. And I'm like, okay, quanta scale, periodic scale. I'm like, there are a lot of things in here that all I know is I've just seeded my algorithm with so many hours, I'll literally fall asleep.
I literally laundered my shit through Thad's thing.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. Can you see the general shape of this? Arwen, is that how you say your name?
Arwen, yeah.
Can you see how this is like 2? I'm describing it as 2 square pyramids with their tips touching.
Yes.
Except the central sphere, the central region is exaggerated in size because it's meant to illustrate the point that the entire range of atomic density is transcended within the first 2 elements, right? So there's like not atomic density, sorry, it's a certain type of canonical density. I can't remember, it's been a while since I worked on this. Erase what I just said from your memory. Obviously, it's not the highest atomic density. It's some type of density, though. Give me a break. It's been a while since I worked on this. It's about the shape, though. So taking this shape originally starts out as a shape which is very similar to space-time event. Okay, so I brought that up earlier. This is currently how it's understood. So basically, this thing, but we fix an axis and rotate it around the fixed axis. I don't know if you were there when I don't think you were when I was drawing that stuff on paint.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, quick translation, at least for my sake, is those space-time events. Basically, you have 2 cones or funnels. kind of together.
Mhm.
There's a point where they meet. That point is basically
That's the
your
principle
central.
of hold on a minute. That's the principle of entanglement. Notice how my diagram's not moving in imagination. Yeah, chances she can visualize what you're describing right now. If you can scarcely do it, stick to sanity.
I'm just saying you have these two parts that are focusing in on a point. This is basically it represented by the two pyramids, which end up going in a square like formation, which coincidentally we've been wondering for years, apparently within the greater math physics community, why objects with mass can only turn at a maximum of 90-degree angles at any given point.
Okay, that answered a question that I had. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm very glad to hear it. So the next thing we want to look at is bearing in mind that what this is a geometric representation of the periodic table. We can take this image and rotate it. So if you rotate it so that you're looking down the axis of the s orbital, which is the green spheres, it turns into a hexagon. The projection is a hexagon.
Yeah,
it's
it
a
is.
torsion. That's a torsion field. So the thing to understand is that the periodic table is a space-time event, and everything is a space-time event. And we use space-time events, and nothing's not a space-time event. And everything is either a space-time event or a mediator for a space-time event, and they're manifold. And essentially, it's the only identity, and that's what makes all the other identities extremely hard to parse out, because they all seem to be interrelated, yet not grounded in anything that would appear to make any sense whatsoever. So the idea here is to show how there's always the tiny and the micro and the macro. So I have another image where it's the normal array of the periodic table, where it kind of looks like the Vitruvian Man. But for this one, I wanted to show how the hexagon arises, and it's a balanced torsion field because you're looking straight down the axis. So you're balanced along the S orbital axis. Would you follow that, memes?
Which orbital is the S? I forget how they work.
Green.
No. Wait, shell. Inner or outer?
This is pre-spatial. What are you talking about? So there's 7 s orbitals. There's one inner s. The s orbital's like the first orbital that gets filled, but it's the green ones. So notice how at the beginning they're a line. That the green spheres, the shape they make is a line, and then they make a point. So you're aligning the system to a balance point. Remember how Thad's thing is all about balance points and such? Oh, look, I literally got to go in like 2 minutes. I'm supposed to do a stream with Dubin in literally 2 minutes. So I'm really happy. But anyway, the point of the whole thing was to demonstrate that this is how this planet grows. And this residual crystal here is sort of a proof that there was this period where it grew, and then it stopped growing, and then it froze in its crystal position. It's like, ooh, pretty. And so
it is beautifully symmetrical. It really is.
Could one say our universe kind of might be wedged between, I don't know, 2 giant records that are kind of fractally written there and everything? I don't know. I saw something about where they were showing like the actual, with an electron microscope, the little grooves in like vinyl and everything. I'm like, that's really cool. I'm like, wait a second. I'm listening to some of these holographic videos. What if... I'm just saying it might be a meme that might get some people interested, because I stand by music is magic. It's all oscillatory, bro.
So do I.
Okay, I'm not actually doing a video right now, but I am supposed to watch Duvid doing a video. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I've
been going on for 2 hours. I was actually going to wrap up anyway.
Scent is magic too. Just throwing that out there. I've been thinking about that. Scent is magic too.
The funny thing is, there were a couple of videos where I think the Theoretical Institute, one of those physics channels, that they were doing the olfactory things today. It's very
Scent
understudied.
Is very magic. Yes, it's powerful. It's powerful.
But what I'll do is Jen, if you need to get going, that's totally fine.
It was great to meet you, Arwen. Thanks for having me on.
You too, Jen. You too. I love your brain.
Thank you.
I do. I love your brain, and I love the way you just put it out there. I appreciate it. Don't ever stop doing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the
You're
feedback.
welcome.
Bye for now.
All right.
Bye.
So we got it. Arwen, is there anything you'd like to say for the good people?
Hey. No, I just stopped in to see what y'all were talking about, and of course, it's brainy.
I'm glad this happened and everything. It's like I was just gonna talk about random irreverent things and
know, I
everything, and then
just-
it's like, well, my instincts are like I could continue to ramble on for like another like 60, 70 minutes just by myself, but I'm like, I feel like it's better together. And unfortunately, some folks maybe they just need to upgrade their mic. Maybe they need to do something like this. It's like, okay, all right, we'll just bring folks on. They can have a bit of banter, and I think I learned some more of the quote unquote secrets of the universe and why things may actually happen the way they do. Just because it's like, all right, I looked at it, I'm like, that's a nice, pretty thing. What's actually happening? Not really sure, but things are starting to make some more sense to me.
Well, like I said, I'm a novice student who is interested. I may not always understand it, but I can listen, I can ask questions, and I can add my 2 cents, and that's about all I can do. But
Be wary. Arwen Zombie Queen might be appearing soon.
wait, what?
I'm not. I don't know. Maybe you'll join the crew. I cannot say, but thank you, Sigma, as well. But it's all right. On that, we'll roll a little bit of an outro. But hey, be safe, everybody. Be safe,
Wow.
and you gotta remember.
World exists on the top of a giant turtle.
Be safe, everybody. We'll see ya. Where's the thingy? That was the wrong thing. Peace.
Have you guys checked out the Memes of Destruction's channel? He's an interesting dude. I like him.